Welcome to This Week in Wrestling History.
Last time on This Week in Wrestling History. That's exactly what they need to do with the belt. You're putting it in a much better place, and right, the secondary belt can't be more important than the world title.
And they've done a pretty good job of stepping it back one just to make sure that it's keeping it in the same spot.
Right, so if NXT was just a little bit higher on everyone's radar, they'd be perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so welcome back to This Week in Wrestling History. We're your hosts, Ryan, Jacob.
Yo.
And this is part 2 of our world title and secondary title review.
Yeah, so we just finished the
Basically,
WWE,
we finished WWE's part, and now
Yep.
it's everyone else's.
which makes sense because WWE's essentially, with how many belts they have, 3 companies in one.
Right, they are kind of a juggernaut. So, all right, so this week we're going to do IWGP, a.k.a. New Japan, and NJPW. We're going to do Impact.
And Ring of Honor.
Ugh, that last one. That's going to be a thing here. And then
Strap yourself in, folks.
yeah, then when we're done with those 3, we'll kind of give our overall impressions of where the belts stand today and so on and so forth.
All right, so let's start with New Japan's main belt, the IWGP World Heavyweight title.
All right, for design, and so again, we're recapping these as design, lineage, and current value. Design, 10.
I gave it an A.
All right, this is the gold standard for belts.
It is the most beautiful belt I have ever laid eyes on.
I fully agree. I feel like the AEW belt might get there for me, but
I'll have to get used to it.
right, exactly. I'm not even saying it is, but this thing is the belt.
The one thing that I like a lot about this belt is how different the side plates are.
Yeah.
The fact that it's kind of like the Stanley Cup thing where somebody wins the belt and they add
Yeah,
your name
like-
onto the side of the belt.
Yeah.
So
It
you're
carries its lineage with it.
right.
So, that brings up the lineage. What'd you give it?
I gave it an A minus.
I gave it an 8. So I think that's right about in the same ballpark.
Yeah.
In the early 2000s, New Japan had some mishaps. That company took a real big step backwards in the early 2000s.
They did.
They've recovered very nicely.
However, we got Shinsuke in the early 2000s.
We did, but
I mean,
overall it was a
Bob Sapp.
yeah. During Brock's whole time with it, ooh.
Yeah. But after that, we started getting more Tanahashi
Yeah,
because that's when he
rescued the company.
put the company on his back and ran into the future.
Right. So it definitely has recovered since then. I'll be honest, the last couple years have not been great.
So they've been okay.
Right.
Jay White winning the belt.
I'm going to say something that's going to make myself sad. Kenny's reign wasn't fantastic with it.
No, it wasn't.
Jay White's was
Abysmal.
dirt awful.
But I mean,
Tanahashi's most recent reign with it was not anything to be proud of.
but you know what we got over the last couple of years? Okada.
That's the biggest one. Okada's mega reign really helped bring that thing to the forefront.
720 days as a champion.
Jeez.
And that was his 4th reign.
Right. So
That guy has held the belt 5 times and has held it for over 1,600 days.
jeez. That belt, it's weird. He definitely is known for being the champ for the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
For the last few years, he hasn't been necessarily on the top of his game.
But he's still been
He's still been really good, but that title honestly only has the visibility it does because of him.
Yes.
Like, we know AJ Styles held it a couple times, but it's because of him. It's because of that belt's still proximity with Okada and Tanahashi.
Yeah, and if we want to go back a little bit, you have the great Muta.
Mm-hmm.
You have Vader with it. Yuji Nagata held it quite a few times.
I'll say Vader actually held it a couple times, but never actually defended it successfully.
Right. He held it three times.
Three or 4 times, but
Yeah.
very short reigns and never had a successful defense, which was sad. But
Yeah. I mean,
again, this
It's overall, I would say in Japan the most important belt.
Easily. And the fact that it has so much notoriety outside of Japan speaks a lot for it.
I would say it's the second most important belt in the U.S.
I don't know if I'd go that. Ooh, maybe I would go that far right now.
The only belt that's more important is the WWE title.
Yeah. For hardcore wrestling fans, I fully agree. Overall, I think I just...
Probably not.
Yeah, I disagree flatly, but that's just a little quibble thing.
Yeah.
No, that's right there. Current value. What'd you give it? Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. You were asking.
Yeah, sorry.
I thought you were going into that.
Nope.
Current value, I gave it an A-.
So, a lot of this kind of... I'm just going to be repeating what I just said. I gave it a 7, and to see my note on the WWE World title value for...
Because you can't rate it higher than that.
I can't rate it higher than the WWE title, which I gave a 7.5. I say its value is hurt by the poor reigns of Kenny, Tana, and Jay White. Current Okada reign doesn't feel like much right now, but we're also kind of pretty early into it.
Yeah, it's only been 120 days.
Catch me after Wrestle Kingdom next year. We'll see how it's doing then. Depending on what happens at Wrestle Kingdom, can do a lot to kind of...
Well, and we're also building Okada's next challenger in the G1.
Right,
which... The way it's going is it's either going to be Moxley or Kenta, which give me those.
Yeah. So, like I said, catch me after Wrestle Kingdom, and I'll give you a better call on how I feel like this reign is going.
Yeah. I mean, going back a little ways, though, I mean, you look at Naito having it.
Yep.
You look at Okada with his mega reign, AJ with it.
Like this title feels prestigious, which is it's not really anything we ranked any of the other ones on, honestly. I mean, I guess it kind of falls into lineage, but it's still different somehow.
Right. So here's my quick take. I said I wanted to hold the WWE title because I want my name to be with all those other names.
Uh-huh.
I would also take this belt because I want my name to be with all those other names, but the belt also looks damn cool.
Right. I almost feel like holding this title means a little bit more than holding the WWE title.
Because they don't just throw it to anybody.
Right. Exactly. It feels like you have a little bit more trust in you.
And when you don't, you hold it for a month.
Right.
Jay White.
Yeah. All right. So, next up is the IWGP IC title. And there's a little bit of wonkiness with this that I'm going to mention in one of my review parts here.
Okay.
Design. What do you give this for design?
I actually really like this because, guess what? It's a white strap.
I actually don't like this on this one. The white strap, it detracts for me.
I give it an A-.
I give it a 6, a 7. Hang on, I can't remember. A 7.
So, it's come a long way from what it used to be.
Yeah.
It used to look like a fucking penny.
What? So it looks like the tag titles in the WWE?
Yes. Have you seen the old style of that belt?
I think I had, yeah.
They
pull up a picture here for me. I don't dislike that.
When Shinsuke got the belt, that's when they transitioned to the white strap and the way it is now.
So
and it was because he said the old belt looked too much like a yen.
Yeah, that's fair. So the big thing that New Japan does with their titles that no one else has really figured out as well, I think AEW may have caught it though, is it's layered. There's layers to the belt. There's like plates stacked on plates, and not that it makes it look like a giant clumpy mound, but it gives it depth and character.
Yeah, the IWGP sits a little bit higher than the rest of the belts.
Exactly.
Then even behind the IWGP, there's like a little dip behind it.
Yep. They have depth where not only are there some recesses in the belt, there are some additional plates that stack up and come forward, and it just makes it look hefty and good. I don't know. The white belt honestly killed it for me. I think that's all there was to that one.
See, I like the white strap. I like when things are just slightly different, but not drastic.
All right.
Like, I mean, if somebody showed up with a a sky blue WWE Intercontinental belt, like the
Warrior did.
or the yellow belt like Goldust did.
Yeah,
It's just shocking enough for me to be like, I don't know how I feel about that.
that's fair.
All right, lineage.
All right, you want to go first?
Sure. I gave it a C.
I give it a 6.5.
So we're
We're
pretty
right
close.
about there. Yeah, I said the belt's a bit of a roller coaster at times, but it's typically a good indicator of who's headed up to the main stage.
Correct. One of my issues is MVP.
That's a weird first choice.
Like, I know I had said earlier in the first episode that he was, like, when we're talking about belts, like, he could have been,
Yeah, right.
pushed to
You were
the
a guy
upper
that said that
card.
he could have been someone that was on the way up.
but in New Japan, I don't know. I don't know his history in New Japan. I don't know, like, aside from him being the first champ, I don't know what he did.
Right. And it very much could have been hey, this is an internationally known guy. Let's bring him in and do
'Cause
this. And
They've always said they like having former WWE guys come in.
right.
So I don't know. Like,
It's a little wonkadoo.
it's not a problem, but it's
Which,
head scratching.
to be fair, the way New Japan is built, having the lineage of this being is kind of fair. It would almost make sense that your belt has a bunch of hits and a few misses. That
Yeah.
actually kind of speaks well to your bookers being able to kind of peg things, especially when it's the transitional belt.
I mean, which if you go back through the lineage of this belt, so I'm gonna go through and say some of the misses.
Okay.
MVP,
Yep.
Bad Luck Fale,
Yeah, he just didn't really pan out.
Hiroki Goto,
I believe you're actually wrong on that one. I think he's not necessarily a top tier, but he's kind of in that. He's almost in the Mr. Perfect realm for New Japan, where
I would still, based off of have this belt go to top tier, it's a bit of a miss.
okay,
Michael Elgin,
yep,
I'd hate to say it, but Minoru Suzuki.
no, so that's where the belt plays a little bit of double duty as being kind of that mid card crown. It is the glass ceiling for some people.
Yeah.
And-
okay.
But I think that's kind of what I mean, where you almost want some of those misses because it means you actually kind of tried with a few guys, tested the waters,
Right.
and it didn't work out.
And that's why I'm putting Suzuki in there.
Right, and that's okay. I don't think you could ever have a belt that was all hits. And if you did, I think it means you're playing it a little too safe and conservative with
Right.
who you're doing. So, or you're just that amazing at finding talent. I don't think there's really anyone that's that amazing.
Now, here's one that some people could have picked as a miss, but hindsight being 2020 back in 2013, Lasombra.
Sombra? Yeah, I was looking over here and your
Which-
shoulder and seeing that list, and I was like, hey now.
For those of you that don't know, that's Andrade. That's who when he was wearing his mask in Mexico.
Yeah. That's an interesting, that's kind of a cool bit.
But then you flip it, and then you have Shinsuke holding the belt 5 times.
You have Shinsuke, you have Naito being a multi-time holder.
Yep. You have Kenny, who,
I had forgotten Kenny actually held it.
yeah, he held it before the junior belt, I believe.
That's really extra weird.
You also have Tanahashi holding the belt as kind of a holdover for a little bit.
Yeah, and he definitely kind of helped raise the stakes on it a little bit.
Jericho,
Yeah,
Coda.
that's an
Ibushi.
interesting one.
So there's definitely some good ones in there.
Yep. All right, current value. What'd you give it?
I gave it a. Hang on, let me look. I gave it a B.
I was a little harsh on it. I gave it a 5, but for a specific reason. I said, New Japan has belt fatigue. There's too many mid-level belts, especially with the introduction of the U.S. title. It just waters down the value of all of these things.
True.
You have like this weird milieu of IC title, U.S. title, neverweight open title.
Yeah, I mean,
It's weird.
I get it, but if you're not going to have a women's division, and your roster is as big as it is. I mean, I get it. To me, this belt almost feels like a Universal title.
It should, but it doesn't to me. I get what you're saying.
And I see why you don't feel like that. But if they're going to have any secondary main belt, it would be this one.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, whether it's by default or not, it's still going to be this one.
Right. Overall, this was one of my much higher rated belts. So I don't think it didn't actually quite crack the top 3 for me, but if you go, so when we get to overall, if you go by my numbers, this actually would have been my number 3.
Okay.
So I definitely acknowledge it. The abundance of the other titles kind of calling this the secondary belt is a little weird.
Yeah.
And because of that, it got dinged.
The kind of going back to Lineage 2, one thing that I forgot to bring up is we dinged the North American title for only having 4 people.
Uh-huh.
This only has 13 people who have held it.
Man, that's
and it's
so weird.
Been around for 8 years now.
All right, so New Japan also is just a little bit more conservative on their title reigns. So
very true. People hold the belt for fucking 500 days.
Yeah. All right, and now we're going to take a step down. Honestly,
we're off to Impact.
We're going to Impact, folks.
All right, so let's start with the Impact World Title design. What did you give it?
Give it a 6.
The new belt that they have right now is not awful.
It's not awful. Of all of their belts, I'll be honest, again, you're more of an Impact/TNA guy than I am. It's fine. It's on the higher end of their belts. There's just, again, a little something about it that if it doesn't stand out in any way, Impact is definitely noticeable on it, and I know I gave WWE some slack on their branding of it, but for some reason, it's just a little too generic feeling still.
Yeah, I could get that. I do like how they did the layers just like New Japan did. The Impact
they just don't. Yeah,
sits a little farther forward. It's a belt.
Yeah.
That's really all I can say.
Yeah, exactly. It is
the
most vanilla world championship you'll ever see, I think.
Granted, again, it's much better than some of their previous ones.
Yes.
But
it's a very safe conservative design, which it doesn't get many points for.
Right. I mean, there's one belt that they had that I enjoyed a lot more than this one, which is the one that Sting had for a little bit that had like the kind of eagle design to it.
Oh, yeah.
But overall.
Honestly, I think the current one needs like another side. Like if it had beefier side plates or something, it might feel better. It just...
I get that.
So it needs a little extra something that would not clutter it up, but... All right, Lineage.
I mean, to be fair, it's a lot better than that piece of trash.
Yeah, we're looking at one of the previous designs, and that's not a great belt.
All right, so...
This is probably the most confusing Lineage belt that we have.
Yeah, so... I took into account the NWA portion of this.
So I did the NWA here as well. So a little background, when we were first talking about doing this title, I actually made the argument that the NWA heritage could be wrapped into the WWE title because technically the WCW world title came down from the NWA title. I think most people would most directly say NWA belt evolved into the WCW belt.
Well, especially because the big gold belt was the NWA belt and then was also the WCW belt.
Right.
But then it was also the World
Heavyweight Championship belt, yeah.
Which is now in with the WWE title.
Yes. If you ever want a real mind-melting time, go try to figure out the lineage of the NWA titles and the WWF titles and the WCW.
The flow chart that they have on Wikipedia for this thing is it makes my face hurt.
Right. It's so weird. Anyways, that's a long, boring way of saying we credited the TNA title as being the NWA championship.
And the main reason that I did that is because at one point this was the main belt.
It's
for
because
Impact.
TNA used the NWA title as their main belt for the first
Correct.
couple of years.
If we had done something similar to this talking about WCW, we probably would have done the same thing.
Exactly. It's weird that we broke it up like that, and I totally get like I said, I almost made the argument that it could belong with the WWE belt, but as most people commonly do, there's a ton of great arguments for not doing it and yada yada, but it's kind of colloquially always just included here, so that's
Right.
what we did. Anyways,
So
ratings.
what did you give it for Lineage?
So I actually gave it 2 Lineage grades again.
Okay.
Cheated a bit. The TNA/Impact era Lineage is a 4. It's a hot potato main title. That's never good. Has no significant holders that held it long enough to establish it. As the NWA title Lineage, I gave it an 8 just for the feels.
Okay. So overall, I gave it a B. And
That's, I think, more generous than I would have gone with it, but obviously if you're looking at the NWA part of it, that's way up there.
well, I solely did when Ken Shamrock was the first NWA TNA champion.
Then you sir are a sack of liars.
Here's why. A little bit more of a nostalgia feel for me because I was watching TNA essentially grow.
Uh-huh.
I enjoyed some of their stuff that they were doing when it was the TNA title. After the NWA part split from it,
Uh-huh.
when it was Sting, Kurt Angle, and Samoa Joe having matches against each other. Granted, the storylines were a bit goofy with those, but give me Kurt Angle versus Samoa Joe any day of the week.
That's fair. It's just, yeah, I think you know how I feel about it. So,
Yeah.
All right. Current value.
I gave it a C.
I went harsher. I gave it a 4 out of 10. I said Impact is definitely making a comeback right now, but it fell too far for this thing to really matter right now.
The part that got me was two things. Johnny Impact holding it for almost 200 days.
I think you very much more value Johnny company name than I do then.
Well, no, that's why I'm saying it hurt.
Oh, very good.
It hurt.
Yes.
And Pentagon Jr. only holding it for 2 days.
Yeah. If they had let Pentagon have a run with this, that would have helped a lot.
Uh-huh. However,
But TNA.
Austin Aries winning that belt made it feel important.
It made it
little
feel
bit-
important to wrestling fans, I think.
Yes, a little bit more important than what it should have been.
That's fair. The problem with Austin Aries is he's a wrestling fans wrestler,
Oh, 100%.
whereas guys like Cena will pull people in. Aries,
Right.
I don't think is pulling in any new viewers, but
True. I
He's
mean, you could make the same argument for Pentagon.
I think because he's a luchador and has a mask, I think he has a little bit more ability to.
And he's a little more flashy when
Yeah.
he throws up his sign.
Yep. I think he has a little bit more crossover appeal.
I'm also going to make said same argument for Brian Cage. He's not pulling me in as a wrestling fan, but I could see somebody looking through Impact and being like, that guy's fucking huge.
Yeah.
What is this?
I could see that.
He's a mountain mixed with Wolverine.
The problem is he actually I feel like personality wise, I don't know much about the guy, and I feel like he could be a little flashier on that front to pull people in a little
True.
bit more. Like, again, Cena has a giant personality, so that really helps, and he's bright and colorful, which
True.
I mean, don't hurt. But all right, Impact X Division title.
Okay, so I'm again probably going to be a little bit more biased for this one.
E.
The X Division title, I gave it a C for design.
I give it a 7. Actually, I kind of liked it.
I don't like how kind of
Squished.
vertical it
Okay.
is.
All right, fair enough.
Granted, I'm going to contradict myself, which I like how vertical the AEW title is,
Yeah.
but the AEW title is a little more in your face retro style.
Right. There's a weird thing when it comes to making very unique choices that, especially with design choices, is you need to kind of embrace it or don't. And if you don't fully embrace it, then also, I'm not sure what you mean by vertical on this. Do you mean it's because it's a much more horizontal looking title to me?
The side plates. The side plates kind of made it feel a little bit more vertical because they have that curve to them.
See, to me that makes it feel much. Boy, don't you love talking about like visual designs on a podcast? Right. Sorry, everyone, but just Wikipedia these things as we're talking about them. I think it extends it out and makes it look more horizontal. But
see, to me, I like a traditional side plate.
I see. I think that's the thing that I actually liked about the X Division title. So. The thing I like least about it is the giant X on it. It feels too Mountain Dew skater.
I give this more of a pass for it than the NXT title.
Oh, definitely.
Because
that's the name of the division, yeah.
Right. It's the whole point of this division, early 2000s, being that edgy, kind of weird
extreme
thing.
Yeah. That's so unfortunate, but yeah.
All right.
Lineage.
I gave it a B.
I gave it a 5.5. I said it has the names to be much higher, but the time it spends as a hot potato hurts it. This is very hot potato-y.
It is. But I said it last week. I'll say it again. Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles.
Right. The problem is, so this is going to be some of the subjectivity, is none of those guys feel like they had a lengthy run. I don't think of any particular name associated with it when I think X Division title, like we did IC title.
And I think that I don't want to sound like a dick, but I think that might just be you. Because to me, if you were to ask me X Division title, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels.
Which, is a totally fair thing to say, but it also came after AJ was already their world champ once or twice.
True.
I totally understand it, but I'm just saying from an outside point of view, it doesn't. Looking through this, none of that looked like it was establishing this thing. It was such a hot potato for such a long time.
It was. Some of the stuff that hurt it for me was Kurt Angle winning it, which I get. It just didn't feel he wasn't X Division enough for me.
Right.
Lashley holding it.
That's really weird, yeah.
And what's his face? The guy that we just... Brian Cage.
Yeah.
Not X Division enough for me.
That makes sense.
When I think X Division, I think...
It's the work rate belt.
Yeah.
Those guys aren't necessarily... Well, which is weird because Kurt definitely is. Lashley is definitely not.
Kurt would have been for when he was there. It's just, up until then, it was a... whispered cruiserweight belt.
Yeah.
Except for Samoa Joe. What really fucking threw me off was when Abyss won it. Like,
Right. Like, it almost seems like they shouldn't be able to. Like, you don't... But what? No?
Right.
All right. We'll probably differ here a little bit, too, but current value?
I gave it a C-.
So I give it a 4. I said option C is neat, but it actively devalues the belt. Impact's dropped too much since the TNA days to have any real title mean over a 5. As the quote-unquote work rate belt, it probably means more to core fans than their world title.
I would agree with that up until or after the option C part. So I get the part where it would possibly devalue it.
Right.
But when you have some guys who actively say, no, I'm not going to give up this belt, which is what they had done with Rich Swann at one point. People were asking him, Rich, you have this belt. You could exercise option C. He's like, nope, I'm not going to do it.
So, I mean, that's... I see what you're saying, but it feels like it's kind of a little bit late on it. It makes it... The problem is option C means either you're cashing it in which point this thing is then now just a placeholder for your main event thing that we've talked about with the US and IC belt, which isn't necessarily what you want with your mid-card belt.
Right.
Or it's almost an unspoken declaration of, I'm not a main event guy.
Okay.
So that's why I know there's a lot of other good disagreements with my point on that, but that's just my gut feel on option C. all that said, I think it's a neat thing to have. I don't think it's necessarily even a bad thing to have, but it's a weird tension between establishing it on its own and being this backseat belt.
Yeah, I would argue that option C is a better idea than a what did they do in Lucha Underground? The Gift of the Gods.
Oh, I need to watch more of that.
Where it literally took you X amount of time to get all these pieces for this belt to then go after the world heavyweight belt.
There was like medallions that all slotted into the belt, which is kind of someone just posted the belt on Reddit the other day.
It's a cool concept.
Yes.
Executed very poorly.
It's neat, and not to mention the belt looks like, so I said this, the belt looks like an Art Deco grill for a 1950s Ford pickup. If you want to talk about a vertical belt, holy God. Look up that Lucha Underground belt. That thing was so weird.
Yeah, it was the Gift of the Gods title.
Right. And was that their main belt?
No.
Okay, so that was their secondary title.
They had the Lucha Underground belt.
Okay, that was their Money in the Bank belt.
Yes.
And you had to earn all of the different medallions which were given out. It's a cool concept, but weird.
Which their main belt is, it looks good.
Too bad they're not really a company anymore.
Fair point. All right.
Now we've come to Ring of Honor.
The
once great Ring of Honor.
So, I think we're going to differ a little bit here with the main title. Why don't you go first?
All right. For a design, give it a 5.
See, I gave it a B.
I don't know why. Looking at it now, I think it's better than I thought, but it's still a little... I don't know. It's like it's trying too hard to be the IWGP belt, and I think I don't like those side plates as much. Like those ROH side plates, I just don't like.
Yeah, I could understand that.
I probably should have gone higher than a 5, honestly, but
I like how this belt has a lot going on in it, and to me it's fun to look at.
I think that's maybe why I disliked it. Now that the more I look at it, I keep going back and forth between, oh, that's really neat, and oh, it looks like I can get that out of a vending machine. I like the little pops of red in it. That help.
Yeah.
But there's something about it that I just don't care for.
So, yeah.
It's a very subjective 5. I'll take that all day long.
I gave it a B. I mean, I like it. It's better than some of their older ones.
All right. Lineage. What you give it?
So because it's Ring of Honor, I had to give it higher marks, but I couldn't go any higher than a B+.
I went 7.5, which
cool.
I think falls right there. I said it's very unique as it's existed for 17 years. It's only had 22 people hold it, and only 4 people have held it more than once.
Yeah, and if you go back and look at the names of some of the people on this list,
they ended up being big names for the most part.
So let me hit a bunch of them. Samoa Joe.
Yep.
Austin Aries.
Yep.
CM Punk.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel Bryan.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Bryan Danielson.
Right.
Nigel McGuinness.
Yeah, less so, but...
As a wrestling fan's wrestler.
Right.
Tyler Black.
Yep. Seth Rollins.
Roderick Strong. Kevin Steen.
Kevin Owens.
Adam Cole, Bebe.
Adam Cole.
Jay Lethal. Wrestling fans wrestler again. Christopher Daniels.
Yep. But he was a weird placeholder champ.
It was the 15th anniversary show. It was a feel-good title.
It was a feel-good title hold, and honestly, it was also kind of a placeholder because it was right after. That was when Adam Cole was leaving for NXT. Yep.
Cody.
Yeah.
Kyle O'Reilly.
Okay.
I mean, aside from
a lot of wrestling fans, wrestlers.
Yes, very much so.
And a lot of people that went on to bigger, better things from there.
Yep. I would agree with that.
Current value.
I gave it a C because who the fuck is Matt Taven?
So I said 5.5. It said if the brand was bigger, it would be higher, despite its value being hurt by some of the more recent champs being questionable.
So I would question Matt Taven.
I definitely question Matt Taven. Honestly,
I wouldn't question Lethal.
Lethal, I would, but I can get where you wouldn't. Dalton Castle, honestly, I would.
I'm not going to because he's a hometown boy.
He is a hometown boy, but he's questionable. Cody is actually honestly kind of questionable.
For the time, yes.
Because this was pre-AEW.
Yes.
So this was more...
This was pre him in New Japan.
Yeah.
Also.
So it was almost a step backwards as far as Ring of Honor typically goes. Ring of H. Right. All right. How far Ring of Honor normally goes, where normally they're catching people on their uprise, and this could have, I'm not saying it was or it is or anything of that nature, this could have been seen as catching someone on the downswing.
Yeah. I mean, Dalton Castle for sure on the downswing. He hasn't really done
well.
much
I'm saying
since.
just Cody because
yeah,
it was a former WWE guy. Rarely do you go WWE to Ring of Honor. Normally it's the other way around.
True.
So,
I say, who the fuck is Matt Taven?
And you know who Matt Taven is.
Yeah, I haven't seen much of his stuff when he was with Mike Bennett in the Kingdom, but
you when we went to Ring of Honor, you at least had some idea of who this guy was.
I mean, you looked at him and goes, "Who's that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's Matt Taven."
Exactly.
But even when I have to say, "Who the fuck is Matt Taven?" there's an issue.
Right.
I mean, the fact that this could have been on Marty at one point.
Yeah. That was a missed opportunity. All right. And finally, last title we're going to talk about here individually, the Ring of Honor TV title. I want to hear what you say first because I'm going to bury this fucker.
So let me run through all three of mine first then.
Okay. Well, no, just for design is all I'm going to bury it. It gets better after that.
Design, I gave it a C.
Okay.
It's not awful. It's not great. The side plates weird me out a little bit where, I mean, the main belt has one side plate on one side with the Americas in it. And then on the other side, it has Europe and Asia in it. Whereas this one, it has the entire world map stuck into one side plate on each side.
Yeah. All right. Did you want to do the rest of yours first before I go to any? I think let me just do mine here.
Go ahead. I'm not going to say anything through this.
All right. I give it a 3 because the first fucking thing you notice about this goddamn belt is that it says television in it in giant letters. That is atrocious, and it makes it feel cheap and tacky. That's the worst design choice I've ever seen any belt maker make up until I saw the 24/7 title.
Is that it?
That was it.
Oh, okay. I thought that was gonna be a lot worse.
No. The biggest thing this thing has going against it is that it's a god awful ugly belt. Oh wait, hang on. It gets better, then it gets worse again.
So Lineage, I'm gonna actually move my score up from what I wrote down.
Okay.
I gave it a C+. I'm going to give it a B.
Okay. Again, I do that thing you hate where I give multiple grades. From its creation to mid 2017, 7.5. The people that held this thing were some really big names in the business as far as wrestling fans go. They were the wrestling fans' wrestlers.
I mean, we have Kushida, Marty, Will Ospreay, Roddy, Ishii, Ciampa, Adam Cole, Lethal, El Generico.
Yeah, so some pretty big names. From mid 2017 after Kushida to today, gets a 3.
So I get that. However, aside from Silas Young, Kenny
Silas Young was exactly the reason it got that grade.
So aside from him, Kenny King was okay, but and Shane Taylor.
What the hell's a Shane Taylor?
The guy who has it right now.
Okay, what the hell's a Shane Taylor?
That's why I'm pushing him aside. Jeff Cobb.
Okay.
Dude's good.
He's good, but...
Dude's good. He doesn't have much of a name behind him, but he's good.
He's not good enough to make up for a Silas Young and a who the hell is Shane Taylor?
Yeah, but I mean, back-to-back Punishment Martinez to Jeff Cobb, I think that makes up for it.
I don't know Punishment Martinez. I know he's a TNA guy or was a TNA guy.
No, he's an NXT guy right now.
Oh, okay. Still, I don't...
I
Not a guy for me yet.
I know more about the two of them than I know about Matt Taven.
Uh-huh.
So,
I feel like that just speaks even more poorly about the ROH World title, if anything.
right.
All right.
Current value.
I said 2, and that's being kind.
Yeah, I gave it a C. I'm going to move it back one and give it a D.
Yeah, this is not... Jeff Cobb aside, I'm not even going to necessarily say Punishment Martinez. I'm going to say Jeff Cobb aside. It's been some dark days for this belt for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, when we saw Cobb at Global Wars, it was an entertaining match.
Yeah.
It was fun. Him against Evil.
Yes. I thought I was almost going to say Elgin, but no, it was Evil.
It was him
Two
versus
big dudes.
Evil for this belt.
Yep.
And the entire time Jeff
yeah.
Cobb had this belt, he was undefeated. Well, he had an undefeated thing leading up to and then in through this belt.
All right, so he had like a kind of a Goldberg type run.
Yeah, his first loss in ROH was to Shane Taylor losing this belt.
I feel like that may have been a mistake.
Very much so.
All right, then. All right. Overall.
Let's hit our overalls.
All right. So I didn't rank all of them, but I did a top 3 and a bottom 3.
All right, give me your top 3.
Top 3, number 1 has to be the WWE World title. Because, as we said last week, it's the title.
My number 1 is the WWE Intercontinental Belt. The reason that the WWE title is not as high for me is the design and the value.
Okay.
The current value.
That's fair. I understand those, and honestly, it's me valuing the lineage of the belt so excessively.
Well, and the only reason that it's in my number 3 spot is because of the lineage.
Right. And my only argument is that lineage transcends the belt to such a degree, which, you know,
I get. We
yeah,
talked about that last episode.
We've discussed. That's kind of more of a stylistic thing or a subjective thing.
What's your number 2?
Number 2 is the IWGP Heavyweight Championship.
I agree, 100%.
All right.
That's my number 2.
Yep. And then number 3, you said it was your WWE World title.
Correct.
I said it was the NXT World title, just because. And honestly, I think as I mentioned last week, the NXT World title has almost taken the place of what the WWE IC belt used to be.
Okay.
The work rate belt, the grooming these guys for the main event stage belt.
That's fair.
So
That's fair.
I could reasonably make the argument that we actually had we had the same 3 belts in the top 3, just
Yeah.
I had the modern incarnation of them, you have the previous incarnation of it.
So now I'm going to hit my middle ones.
Okay.
And before I get to my bottom 3, I'll run through all of these.
Sounds good.
All right. So after that, I have the WWE US title is my number 4.
Okay.
Again, you know my feelings on the design of that belt
Yep.
and my nostalgia to it. Number 5 was the NXT title,
Okay.
pretty much for the same reasons you said.
And I think I probably would have had US and IC belts right around that same rank too.
Number 6, again, nostalgia. I have the Impact title.
Interesting. Okay.
With the lineage to it up until the NWA days and kind of the current value.
Okay.
The thing that hurt it the most was the design to it.
Okay.
Now I have a 3-way tie for number 7.
All right.
The ROH World title, the IWGP Intercontinental title,
Okay.
and the North American title.
Okay. So, in my middle kind of 4, 5, 6, 7 range would have been US, IC, IWGP, IC, and NXT North American belt and X Division belt.
So out of those 3, I would probably rank it.
Oh yeah, because we had 12 of these things, not 10.
Yeah, IWGP Intercontinental title, North American title, Ring of Honor title.
Okay.
Bottom 3.
Bottom 3, and these are in no particular bottom 3 order, but
Oh, see, I have an order for them.
so my absolute worst one was Ring of Honor TV belt. That thing was trash. The people that have held it lately are trash, and the decent people that held it at some point don't do enough today to bring it up to where it needs to be.
My bottom of the barrel Universal title, for the exact same reason.
Universal title just fell into the middle of the range for me.
It's poop. It's poop.
My next was second to last was the Impact World title.
Mine was the ROH TV title.
Okay. So, Impact World title there falls for me. So, let me give you my next bottom. Coming in second to dead last basically was a tie between the Impact World title and the ROH World title.
Okay.
The reason they're so low is they're supposed to be the number one belt. And the fact that they're not even... Basically, you got dinged extra points in the overall ranking for being a main title and not being higher.
Okay.
So it's kind of a weird double ding on things, but that's why I said in the previous episode, if you go numerically, you're not going to get the right numbers for my ranking. It's because it's a certain point became a subjective thing of you're a world title, you should be carrying yourself better than this, and the fact that you're not, you get extra negative points now.
That's fair. I think I gave the world titles just a little bit more leeway with something like that. My third to dead last was the X Division title.
Really?
Yes.
That shocks me.
Solely because I don't like the design of it.
But all your feels.
All my feels are 10 years old at this point.
Wow, childhood's dead.
Yes.
Buried in a shoebox in the backyard.
Rich Swann brought it up a little bit when he got it, but it hasn't felt as special as it did when AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels.
Well, and see, that's exactly why I gave it some leeway is it's the secondary belt. It's not supposed to feel more special than your main belt, so it's forgivable for not feeling as special. But
what I'm saying is that it doesn't feel as special as it used to be.
Right.
So it's less than the main title still.
Yeah.
And it's...
So for me, being a casual, just kind of reading online reports every now and then of TNA, the X Division title always sounded more like their Universal title to me. Like it sounded almost like it wasn't even supposed to be in contention. It was just a different belt that existed and was the work rate belt. So
yeah, I don't think that I will ever have another belt that feels like watching some of the stuff with the X Division belt.
Because at its peak when it was doing its thing, especially if that was your first real wrestling company for you, which it kind of sounds like it was.
I mean, I watched WWE, but I wasn't as invested in it.
Yeah.
I had the feeling of I'm watching this company grow.
Right. I could definitely see where there'd be a little bit more personal investment in it.
I'm feeling like I would assume some younger wrestling fans are feeling with AEW right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm watching it grow. I'm watching it because
there's just a little bit more emotional investment there because it felt like your interest in this was growing with the company.
I felt like it was my thing.
Right, it was probably honestly a little bit more accessible because it felt like you were kind of jumping in while it was growing instead of it being this giant conglomerate monolith that like, oh man, I got to jump into this thing and figure out who's been champ for how long and it's been around for 40 years and I'm 12 and what the hell and
right.
Yeah, I can totally get that.
Yeah. And it was always fun to watch the X Division stuff because it was so different, because it had a different feel to it that now it doesn't have that same magic to me anymore.
That's fair. I get that.
So that's why it's the more recent history, 2010 forward, has killed that belt for me.
Fair enough. All right. Prove us wrong. Email us.
It's our first ever two-parter.
Yeah. Prove us wrong. Wrestling History Podcast at gmail.com or Facebook, probably the best way to get a hold of us.
Or Twitter.
Oh,
I'm on Twitter enough now.
That's on my phone, theoretically, still that I can access it. So
I'm on there enough now, so...
Let us know where your top three are. What's your bottom three?
Yeah.
Agree? Disagree? Why?
If you want to throw different belts in. If you want to talk about the Lucha belt.
Yeah. Make an argument for it. if you want to make an argument for what the AEW belt is, where it's going to be.
Right. Go for it.
If you try to argue an AEW lineage with me, that would so help you. All right. So, yeah, thanks for joining us for our first two-parter. It was a different run for us. Didn't think it was going to go that long, but it did, so that was kind of cool to do. So let us know what you think. You know where it is. We're history.